know about David. I don't know how he gets this on the business card, to be honest with you. Our speaker is no stranger to this room. David Sanders has been a community leader, a city council member, and president of the Cordova Community Council for many years. In fact, we think we know David so well we may have forgotten some of the details about his life, so here goes. Mayor Sanders was elected to the first city council when the city incorporated in 2003, re-elected in November 2004 and 2008. He served as mayor in 2007 and as vice mayor in 2006 and 2011. This is his second term of duty here as mayor. He also represents the city in a lot of other ways. He's on the League of California Cities Revenue and Taxation Policy Committee, the National League of Cities Transportation and Infrastructure and Services Steering Committee. He's the vice chair. The National League of Cities First Tier Suburb Steering Committee, the National Civic League Board of Directors, Sacramento Regional Transit Board of Directors, Sacramento Paratransit Board of Directors, Sacramento Placerville Joint Transportation Corridor, the JPA Board, and there's more. Joint leadership meetings with Sacramento County, the Cordova Recreation and Park District, SMUD, and Golden State Water. David's been active in the many community, state, and national endeavors. He is a founder and past chair of the Rancho Cordova 4th of July Committee and an active member and past president of the board of the Cordova Community Council. He's also a past board member of the Rancho Cordova Chamber of Commerce, the Friends of the Sacramento Library Board, the Cordova Community Planning Advisory Board, CORPAC, Sacramento County Airports Master Plan Commission, and the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department Citizens Advisory Panel. In 2002, he was named Volunteer of the Year by both the Rancho Cordova Chamber of Commerce and the Cordova Community Council. He has been a delegate to the National Summit on Retirement Savings at the White House and was a member of the California State Franchise Tax Board's Technical Advisory Committee. In 2001 and 2, he co-chaired a successful ballot measure, Rancho Cordova Kids First, that funded $49 million in school improvements in the city. Councilmember Sanders is the principal and founder of Sanders and Associates. That's a scientific consulting and development firm that specializes in medical and scientific projects. He received a PhD in molecular and cellular biology from Tulane University and did undergraduate work in physics, math, biology, and chemistry at St. Louis University in St. Louis, Missouri. After his doctoral work and before moving to Rancho Cordova, David was appointed and served 2 years as a Congressional Science Fellow. Dr. Sanders and his wife, Dr. Margaret Parsons, a dermatologist, have lived in Rancho Cordova since the 1990s, and they have one son, and he's young, and that's Charles. David's a friend and a champion of Rancho Cordova on many fronts, and we look forward to his year as mayor. And I'm almost out of breath, David, so let's please welcome Mayor David Sanders.
Tired just hearing that.
You should be.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, giving the traditional mayor's address for the community council in January. You know, I thought about this, and I've attended an awful lot of these sorts of talks over the years from different organizations at different times, and you know, of late, in the past 5 years or so, they've all kind of been downers in one way or another. You know, the economy's bad, we're losing jobs. Housing market's terrible. So I decided we are going to do none of that today. We are going to talk about great things in Rancho Cordova. Are you ready for great things in Rancho Cordova? Yeah. All right. 12 great things in 2012 in Rancho Cordova. So Melody, let's get started. What's number one? Public safety. This is the number one priority for government, right? First, foremost, our job, keep our population safe. That's why we had cities to begin with. So, how are we doing? Melody, how about another slide? I don't know how often we talk about these numbers, but I thought I would just throw some simple numbers up here. Since incorporation, our crime rate and the number of crime reports has been down every year. And not just a little, a lot. Violent crime's down 41% in Rancho Cordova since incorporation. Nonviolent crime is down 42%, and our population is up 15%. So everything we did when we first became a city, adding more cops to the street, doing more unique things, our PAL program, our POP program, our special teams to the police department, this is the result. The scary thing is that if you look in the surrounding areas in Sacramento County, they have had to cut their police budgets, their sheriff's budgets. It's to such an extent now, I can tell you, we have virtually double the officers per head that they do in the county. Double. We started off 20% more, but after their cuts, it's an incredible difference, and this is the benefit of that investment in public safety. So in addition to just straight out public safety, we also do something called strong neighborhoods. How many people have heard of strong neighborhoods in Rancho Cordova? Very good. When I was mayor 5 years ago, we started this. We kicked this off. It's basically about retaining property value in Rancho Cordova, raising our quality of life, making it a more attractive place for people to want to live in and move to. And we do a lot of things. We've won national awards for Blight Busters. We started those 5 years ago. They're going to be back this year. We're going to do at least 4 of them. We're going to do neighborhood cleanups. That's where we sort of notify a whole neighborhood. There'll be dumpsters placed. We'll help you throw things away, clean stuff up, answer questions, deal with all sorts of chronic problems. Last year we started a program called Focus on 50. Have you all heard the story about New York City and how they just drove crime rates down way more than the rest of the country was declining? They did it using data. They did it by figuring out where are those crime spots, where are crimes occurring time after time, and trying to stop that cycle. Rather than just responding to call after call, they went to where the crimes were occurring and proactively tried to stop it. Our Focus on 50 is exactly that. It's a map of Rancho Cordova, and we throw out all the crime patterns, all the calls for service, calls for fire service or ambulances, truancy, any kind of data we can get, we throw on that map. We identify where the problems are, and then we go, knock on those doors, figure out what's causing these problems, and eliminate it. It's been extremely effective. We'll have great data later this year on that. We're going to grow Neighborhood Watch this year, and we're going to continue the great activities of our Police Activities League. How many of you have seen or heard about our Police Activities League? You know, what they do is, in some ways, unbelievable. They take the most at-risk kids and turn them into citizens that have a pretty good chance of making it and staying out of trouble. It's really remarkable stuff. Next slide, Melody. And this year we're going to take the next step in strong neighborhoods. It's about engaging the population in a substantive discussion about what government means in this century. You know, somewhere 50, 60 years ago, government decided that it could kind of be the salve for all of society's ills. You got a problem, call government, government will solve it for you. That's been taken to such an extreme, and frankly, government has done this to itself through the idea of customer service in government, right? We think we should be able to solve all those problems that people have. And it leads to sort of ridiculous situations. You know, we can have people calling City Hall, and they'll call up and they'll say, you know, there's a branch that's blocking a stop sign. Can you come out and trim the branch? Well, sure, where is it? Well, it's from the tree in my front yard. That really shouldn't be a government responsibility. That property owner has every ability to go out there and trim their own branch. But, you know, we've got this mindset of, you know, we call government, government does whatever we want, and they've got to come do it the way I want it, how I want it, when I want it. That's not reality. For centuries, this country built itself up as a can-do community, right? Rugged American individualism. We've got to go back to that because we can't afford for government to do everything for everybody and solve every problem. And this community engagement that's the big picture view, is about that. It's about convincing people in Rancho Cordova that there are a lot of little problems you can solve. And we're not going to tell you how to solve them, but we're going to ask you what you think you can do to help, to make this a better community. Because in the end, there aren't enough government dollars to fix every problem. But I know there are enough great ideas in our community to fix a lot of problems, and that's what we hope to tap into. Next one, Melody. Okay, that was number one, public safety. We got that out of the way. Number two, education. You know what? This year, it turns out we're getting even smarter. In Rancho Cordova, of course, we're getting smarter. Next slide, Melody. So just a few points that you may not have heard about. Cordova High's API test scores last year were up 35 points. A round of applause for that. How about a round of applause? Mitchell Middle School up 30 points. And our superintendent tells me, Debbie is in the back of the room, that we're basically closing in on that magic 800 benchmark for all of the schools in Rancho Cordova that would label them all high performing. So that's a very good sign for our community. Excellent. Number three, prosperity. So that's kind of the rank of what's important in a community. public safety, gotta have good schools. It has to be a prosperous community. So we're sort of going down the list. Number 3, prosperity. How prosperous is Rancho Cordova? Economic development. All right, he said, let's see the next slide. Let's go to the next slide. We are the Fortune 500 capital of Northern California. We have more big businesses here than any other community. We have more private sector jobs than probably any community in Northern California. And we are very balanced. So that during this downturn time that we're in, when vacancy rates in office buildings went to 30-some% in Placer County, our state's some of the lowest vacancy rates in the region. We're incredibly healthy on the business side, and that's a great asset for us. Go to the next slide. So number 4 out of the top 12 things to look for this year. We have won tens of millions of dollars in grants to improve the infrastructure in Rancho Cordova. There'll be a trivia question on this in a little bit about how many tens do you think we've done. Next slide. This year, you are going to see Folsom Boulevard be completed. How many people like what they see on Folsom Boulevard? All right. We got so many complaints when that project started. You took out all those trees that I planted there 25 years ago. Sorry, but we're going to put some great trees back, I promise. We're going to put some sidewalks on Zinfandel Drive this year. We're going to make some improvements to Douglas Road, and we're going to continue an effort that started last year to basically beautify all of the public infrastructure in Rancho Cordova. Now you may or may not have noticed this. It can be subtle, but hopefully it's subtle in a very positive way. You should be seeing less graffiti, less litter, more maintained public landscape than you did last year, and that's going to continue this year. So, what was the magic number?
40 million.
$40 million we've used of don't tell anybody, other people's money to improve infrastructure in Rancho Cordova. And we're continuing on that path. Next slide, Melody. Well, this should come as no surprise. What do we do in Rancho Cordova? Great events.
Yes.
Really great events. They're exciting. They engage our public in a way probably no other community in our region can claim. Go ahead, Molly. So here are a couple of them. The Rancho Cordova 4th of July, one particularly close to my heart. Kids Day, iFest, Christmas tree lighting, the Rancho Cordova, oops, did I say Rancho Cordova Air Show? I did! I said Rancho Cordova Air Show. It's actually called something else, I think. I struggle with that one. But it's my talk, so I can call it what I want. And more and more and more, and if we went on, we'd be here all day talking about those. Let's go to the next slide. Number 6, demolition. In 2012, we are going to tear something down. Now, you know, I get a pretty tough rap on this from my colleagues. The story basically goes that when Sandra is mayor, we tear everything down. And unfortunately, when McGarvey is mayor, we seem to open everything up. Police departments, city halls. I never get any of that glory. But they really give me a hard time about tearing stuff down. Now, I ask you, is this a bad thing to tear down? Now, there are certain photos of me swinging a sledgehammer against this building that are often used. And one councilman, Mr. Skoglund, Dan, are you here today? Dan went so far as to say that I like demolition so much that I even tore down my own house. Can you believe that? But it's true. I did tear down my own house. It's probably just I'm a farm boy at heart and I like the heavy equipment. But tearing stuff down is also good. So you remember this. This actually happened, was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Go on to the next slide, Melody. See, now that's what we like to see, right? That's progress. Next slide, Melody. So anyway, we're going to tear some stuff down this year, and actually we've already started. Who knows what we've torn down?
The Woolworth building.
Yes, next slide. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Now, unfortunately, I was out of town, so that wasn't me right there. It should have been me, but it wasn't. Next slide. Now, just to prove that I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that likes demolition. Look at these 3 guys. And Linda, they're smiling. They like the demolition too. So we're going to tear some stuff down in Rancho Cordova this year. It's going to be great. Next slide. And following that, we're going to build some things up. Next slide. They may recognize this. It's actually already built. This is a drawing of what it was going to look like. Remember where the Stagger Inn was? We tore down 5 buildings behind that, in addition to the Stagger Inn, and we're opening this. When is it opening? February 9th? Just a couple of weeks, this is opening. Crossings at New Rancho. Next slide. We're also going to open a new UC Davis medical clinic at Capitol Village. Coriana Plaza. How many people have shopped in that grocery store? That is an unbelievable store. I would recommend you go there and at least check it out once. They're going to open their new and expanded grocery store this year with a food court on the inside. So even if you're a little intimidated by what you see on the shelf, you can try it right there. And we have, I don't even know how to talk about this. We have an entertainment complex that's in the works. It involves bowling. It involves laser tag. It involves, what else, Kurt? What else do we have? Theaters? How many theaters? 6?
Movie theaters, bowling alley, a laser tag, and a ropes course.
Oh, and a ropes course. All right, that's the new addition. We have heard since incorporation from our population, we want our bowling alley back. We want movie theaters. We think we're this close to the answer to that. So I can't tell you it's absolutely going to happen, but it's looking very likely. Next slide. We've got a couple of small things. We just approved Panda Express on Olson. How many people like Panda Express? I am shocked by that. I mean, I guess it's good, but the response to Panda Express, I don't know. But anyway, I'm happy for you. We're getting a Panda Express. Next slide. And this is probably the big teardown of the year. I will not miss this teardown. What are we going to tear down to put that up? Anybody know? Is that the new Stagger, the Cordova Inn? Do we think so?
Stagger on steroids.
Okay. Cordova Inn is going to come down. We're going to build Walgreens. And this actually is an example of how we're a little different from other cities. So this project came to us this past Monday and Tuesday. And the design wasn't quite right. We as City Council didn't think. We thought you can do a little better than that. You can add a little more detail. What you see up here, if you can see it, this is Linda Budge's handwriting. She literally, with all of us standing around, drew modifications to the architecture right there in the City Council meeting. We didn't have to wait a month. We didn't have to send it through 2 commissions. We didn't have to cost the developer another $50,000 in planning or design or drawings or anything. We did it right there on the spot. They left the room, staff left the room, went with the developer in the next room, came back in, gave us a thumbs up, done deal. Just like that. And it's because you have special skills on the City Council and a work attitude that you just saw in that ICMA video. We will do things faster, better, smarter than the competition, and I think that leaves our community ahead. Next slide. Number 8, great things for kids. Well, we know that Rancho Cordova is very family friendly. That should come as no surprise. And we're going to continue to offer some really great stuff for kids. Next slide. So how many of you have been to the Sacramento Children's Museum? Right over here. If you've got a kid, a grandkid, a niece, a nephew, if you are a kid, you should go to the Sacramento Children's Museum and check that out. It is unbelievable. I visited, I think, I'm kind of a nut about these, but I visited, I think, 17 or 18 of these around the country. And ours is, it's not particularly giant compared to others, but the demand for the use here in Sacramento is incredible. Next slide. Oh, I didn't put that slide in. Maybe it's good that it's not in writing. I'm going to give you a comparison. Our Children's Museum over here across the parking lot is headed for, guess how many attendees in their first year? They've only been open, 5 months?
10.
Guess how many people you think will be through there in 1 year? 10,000?
10,000.
50,000? 100,000?
100,000.
100,000. 100,000 people is what they're on pace to get through the door in 1 year. Now, that project cost maybe $2 million, all sources combined, maybe about $2 million, 100,000 people, $2 million. Crocker Art Museum just did a big remodel, and I love the Crocker. I'm not holding anything against the Crocker. They spent $122 million for 300,000 people to visit. That's an interesting ratio. That's 150 times the expenditure for the number of people going through. The proposed Science Museum is proposing to spend about $70 million for 150,000 people. So no matter how you look at this, this is an unbelievable bang for the buck. And it's helping kids. You know, kids develop, build their educational skills. It's particularly focused on kids under 6. So it's just a wonderful asset. I'm so proud that we got that in Rancho Cordova. So we can see more great things coming. And of course, there's other great stuff going on for kids in Rancho Cordova. We've got the very unique Sacramento Valley Live Steamers, the very unique Hagen Petting Barn. We do unbelievable events, of course, Kids Day. We've got the American River Parkway. I don't want to list anymore, there's too many. We'll go on to the next slide. Organization. In 2012, we're going to be more organized than we already are. Now, we've got the community council, we've got the chamber, we've got the city. One of my things is I look for where's the gap? Where are the things that we ought to be doing that we're not? That cities, healthy cities are doing that we're not. So, next slide. I see a few gaps, and I'm going to work on those this year as mayor. The first is the Rancho Cordova Athletic Association. They have a very successful athletic association in Folsom. We're going to model ours exactly on that. It's basically all the youth sports folks coming together, working together to raise money, share time on fields, share equipment, facilities, whatever's possible, learn from each other, have that benefit, be able to lobby as a group for time on school fields or time on park district fields. We're going to pull a Rancho Cordova Arts Council together. Actually, I think that's probably going to happen without too much intervention. It's a very healthy thing for a community and certainly something we need. We've already started Rancho Cordova After School Coalition. They met for the first time last week. Seems to be a very healthy effort. It brings all the after-school providers together and talking about who's doing what so that they don't step on each other's toes. And sort of surprisingly, it's the first time they've gotten together was last week. And finally, there's this Rancho Cordova Consortium, which you've heard about before. And these are sort of the big boys in Rancho Cordova. The Community Council, the Chamber, the Air Show, and Travel and Tourism all talking about the same thing. How can we share resources, do things together, make an even better community? Go on to the next slide, Melvin. Number 10. I probably should have ranked this one higher. But the city will have I predict this year, our 10th balanced budget and our 10th budget surplus this year. That should be a plus. Because if you look around, we're one of maybe only 2 governments in the area that can make that kind of a claim. Local governments. School districts, I'm not sure about. Their finances are too complicated. But from a city point of view, you know, it's Citrus Heights and us as new cities that really have a good control over what's going on in our finances. And we should be really proud of that because it gives us the ability to do something like that entertainment project I was telling you earlier. It gives us that kind of flexibility that other governments simply won't have. It's not an easy thing. It's a very complicated thing. You know, traditionally governments work, you get a budget and the director of a department tries to spend all of the budget before the end of the year. We don't do that. We actually, shocking on the government side, not so shocking on the private sector side, I hope, but you know, if revenues are coming in low, we actually decrease what we spend. Works for all of us, but it turns out it works for government too, if you're, Citrus Heights or Rancho Cordova. So that, I think, is a good prediction. Ted, you're going to make sure that happens, right? All right. Number 11. This one is also very important. If we didn't do this, there would be a problem, in my opinion. If Ted, as our city manager, never made a mistake, I'd fire him. You know why? Next slide. There is only one way to not make a mistake. You don't do anything. Now, unfortunately, in this country, with the media being what it is, our mistakes, government mistakes, are headline news. Rancho Cordova overspends for whatever. But the problem is they don't tell you the flip side of all the things we accomplished because we took some risk. Government has to have the ability to take risk. If you take risk, you'll occasionally screw up. And we should, and I hope we do. Not big, not often, but I hope we do. Because otherwise we're not trying. We're not pushing the boundaries to see what we can actually accomplish. It's very important that we and our staff know that they have the ability to push so far as to screw something up. And hopefully we will, just not too often. All right, and finally, number 12. What will be back in 2012, my prediction? We'll be back on the ice in 2012 with an ice rink bigger and better than ever. All right, those are my top 12 predictions for great things in Rancho Cordova this year. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about it, I think we have a few minutes probably, Shelley, for questions. Mr. Lefebvre.
You missed Epi's great race with some of our entertainment.
Yeah, I couldn't list all of the events, and Epi's right here at the front table. Is a great
We got tickets for sale today.
I don't know if Mindy Cuppy's in the room, our city clerk, but we need to do we need to name a week this year, Epi's Great Week, or the Great Race Week, something like that as a proclamation. I think that'd be fun. Other questions?
What about chief of police selection?
I have an interview in about an hour with our third candidate. So we have an ongoing selection process for a new chief.
3 candidates?
3 candidates. We've interviewed 2 so far. There's 1 to go. Either one we've interviewed would frankly be a great chief. So I'm not concerned at this point. In the past, occasionally, you worry about that. Will you get the right person? But I think this time we're in good shape. And you know what? It's a sought-after job in the sheriff's department.
Yeah, we missed the great events over at White Rock Park over there. It's really a beautiful park now. Lots of things for kids to do there now.
Yeah, White Rock Park is back. We had a community inquiry about how to do an event there, and we put them in touch with the park district, but I hope things will take off there. And I think the community council should look at, is there something we can do there or something we can help the community do there? Other questions? Yes, sir, in the back.
Will we have a college in Rancho Cordova?
We have a lot of colleges in Rancho Cordova. Not UCs, not, California State. We've got a lot of continuing education colleges, alternative track stuff that's very supportive of our business environment. We've got 50 or 75,000 jobs in and around Rancho Cordova, and we've got an enormous educational backbone that serves those businesses and those employees. It's a huge asset that we have that others don't. We hope to add a community college. I didn't put that on my list because we really don't know where that negotiation will end up. But we hope to be able to announce a community college actually coming to Folsom Boulevard this year.
We have classes right now in Rockingham in front of Wilson Lake College, and that's the one that's going to build the campus. So that's going to definitely expand and outgrow the space they have now. But it's Wilson Lake College. But we have campus small on Rockingham right now. That's one
That's the one that needs to grow. Yeah. Yes, sir, right here in the front.
Well, you're doing so well, but in California, things aren't going so well. So how do you feel you're going to buck the trend? We're seeing more industry leaving California than we see coming in. And what do you think to attract more industry?
The question is, California is seeing more jobs leave than enter. California's in a real rough patch. How can the city succeed when California is not, I think is your question. And those issues are really complicated. Clearly the state is overregulated. We're probably overtaxed on the business side. It's not a very comfortable business environment. I saw someone the other day referred me to a survey that said of 206, something like that, in metropolitan areas, Sacramento is ranked 198th nationwide for places to do business. Those are terrible statistics, but for whatever reason, because of our diversity here in business and the great office space we already have and that educational background I just talked about, we are not suffering nearly as much as the region around us. So for one of those reasons, I can't tell you which, we're doing better. Similarly, on the foreclosure side, I don't know the reason why, but we've got fewer foreclosures than most of our neighboring jurisdictions. And on that jobs front, just so you guys, I was looking at some numbers this morning, trying to figure out how do I make the point of how many jobs we have in Rancho Cordova and how important they are. And I figured out that if you take all the jobs in Folsom, Intel included, all the jobs in Elk Grove, all the jobs in West Sacramento, all the jobs in Galt and Isleton, you throw all of those together, we still have more. You got to throw in Citrus Heights to get to our level.
Wow.
That's how many there are in Rancho Cordova and how unusual it is. So when we go to regional meetings, you know, the great leadership you have in the city council, we attend our regional meetings, that's sort of the poke in the ribs we always get from our colleagues. You guys are hoarding all the jobs. Well, that's right, we are. we can point to Folsom and say, you're hoarding the auto mall, you know? We all have our, actually it should be our auto mall, but that's a whole nother story. Just give us some time on that one. I always scare the economic development people when I give these talks. I was joking with Micah in the back of the room that, you know, I might just stand up here and announce Intel's moving to Rancho Cordova. But I didn't do that. I didn't do that. Other questions?
Actually, I have a comment, David. When you were talking about the finances, I remember when we were working on a corporation, and we went down before the council supervisors, and the chief financial officer for the county of Sacramento, Jeffrey Davies, says that within 7 years, Rancho Cordova will be bankrupt and they couldn't continue. We have had a surplus every year. He's still chief financial officer for the county of Sacramento. And how is their budget?
The amazing thing to me, George, is how much we can do with the same amount of money they said wasn't adequate for them. I mean, it's astounding. You know, we can collect trash at half the cost. We can put a dozen code enforcement officers out on the street, they almost are down to nothing. You know, we have twice the cops. We're repaving all of our streets. They've got a 99-year street repavement plan. You know, it's ridiculous. If you look at the county situation, it's sad. It's actually dangerous for us. If you look at, you know, what could happen around us, and we're still an island of, you know, sanity and efficiency, I hope. But yeah, it's a stark comparison. Other questions or comments?
Can you please tell me what happened to the zip code issue?
Oh, the great zip code theft, the zip code caper. We're waiting for resolution to that. And do you guys remember at reindeer games we used to award the golden fruitcake? And the golden fruitcake was given to some agency or individual who really screwed up during the year. I mean, not a little, a lot. We're holding one of those for when we win on that zip code issue, which I think will be soon. We've got it all ready. But yeah, you know, all the data in that case is in our favor. Even the city of Folsom signed on and said this is not an appropriate change. Any other questions?
So should I feel positive that something good is gonna happen at the corner of Loloma and Folsom?
Loloma
And Folsom?
Loloma and Folsom.
Is something good gonna happen to that lot?
You know, as it stands right now, it's in private ownership. That owner doesn't have a particularly great history in Rancho Cordova. You know, before that project was demolished, we had homeless encampments behind it. We had, well, I remember being on a wheat and seed work crew and walking onto that property into, you know, chest-high weeds that the owner never took care of, trash everywhere, and finding appliances that had been dumped in the back, including intact refrigerators. To me, that is criminal neglect on the part of that property owner. And unfortunately today, he still owns that property. So I do not have a lot of confidence in what will happen there. I hope he has some economic motivation to move, but it's just an unfortunate situation. And that's where the state's ending of redevelopment is going to harm our community indirectly. It certainly makes it a lot harder to do our work. Now we have to have another question because we're not going to end on that downer.
Well, I just want to know, would you reconsider about the state of the city address? I sent you an email about how expensive it was, you know, to come to both of them, $70. To come to one was $35.
We can do that. You know, I think that we ought to be a little more out in neighborhoods as government, and that's part of what our civic engagement project is going to do this year. Do you guys remember during the incorporation drive we had great neighborhood meetings, and you get Dave Roberts at the front of the room yelling for half an hour, and you know, Bob McGarvey standing there trying to calm him down, and all those great scenes. We want to reenact some of that, you know, and get good feedback and good information to our population in a way that really builds community, you know, because that's one of the challenges we have in a modern society is that you don't know your neighbors. You don't come together to work on things as often as you used to, and we've got to get back to those days when you did. And so that's part of what our community engagement project is about. And Maureen, you know, to the point that we can get more people hearing better information, I'm all for it. And we are actually looking at a revamp of that event, but I can't really predict what will happen. Vern.
I'd like to give a plug for our Rancho Cordova Optimist Club, and we have our oratorical contest coming up for children, and we have a lot of fun with that. It's going to be right here at City Hall, March 17th at 12 o'clock, and we'd like to have anybody that has an interest in working with kids to join us. You can see myself or Peter Raj over here, he's one of our new members, and we have a lot of fun doing things for the community.
Thank you, Vern. If there aren't any other questions, I think my time here is done. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Well, I think that deserves another woo-hoo, don't you? Woo-hoo! That was excellent. Now, this has all been a lot of fun, but we're at the really important